check mine. I want to find out what my clout score is. This is really interesting stuff. So, Joe, over to you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Let me just get my notes up here. We are excited to be here, the mobile sector. My name is Joe Jasin, and I'm with DNA Partners. And we have a panel lined up for you tonight that's more content that focused than we do more quality than quantity on this panel. We're going to sift through a lot of information. And I'm a moderator that keeps it tight. So when you guys have a question, I hope it's a question and not a monologue. So anyway, let's get started. I'm going to run through the agenda real quick with you so you know what to expect. Verbal introductions from the panel, some preface comments that's just in the industry, like what is the mobile big data. Panel questions that will be one or two from me, the moderator, to the entire panel. One question each per panelist, one veiled question that they don't know what it is, and then Q&A from the audience, and hopefully we'll have a conclusion remark. So that's the agenda. Once again, I'll introduce myself, Joe Jasin, DNA Partners. We're a seed investment firm focused on digital media distribution, and our geographies are USA and China, and we do seed, really, really small, 50 to 500K investments. And we're young, we've been around, and we have no web presence. We have a good pipeline of incoming companies, and we're excited to be here at Big Data. So panelists, please take over. Why don't we start with Mario from Getjar, please.
Just a quick introduction, or?
Yeah, 2 minutes, please.
All right, Mario Tapia, right now currently Director of Platform Solutions at Getjar. Been doing mobile products for about 12 years now. So a long history working with operators. I used to live in Seattle, so had a nice ecosystem there with AT&T Wireless, T-Mobile, Nextel International used to be there, US Cellular, a lot of stuff out in Seattle until mobile started to kind of emerge in the valley here about 2005. So and came down to LA, worked for Disney for a little bit, and then came down to the valley to work for a small company called Danger, which did the Sidekick. And then and after Danger, worked at Yahoo, building out Latin America. And then about 2 years ago, moved over to Getjar. And
a quick stats rundown for Getjar, who they are, and then what they have to offer.
Getjar is the largest third-party app store. We're cross-platform, so any device you have out there today, we definitely probably support it from Java to Windows Mobile to iOS, Android, Symbian, BlackBerry, but not Brew anymore.
No Brew.
No Brew.
So stats, like how many, you had 2 billion downloads to date?
Over 2 billion downloads to date, doing about 3 million downloads a month cross-platform. And we're in every country around the world. We have like 240 different countries that download from us.
You support like 2,500 devices.
More than that now. It's over like 3,000 now.
That's intense. And then your largest client base, India, Indonesia, but you guys are focused.
Southeast Asia is huge on the feature phone, but Western Europe and North America have really skyrocketed over the last year with smartphone downloads.
And USA is a high priority, is that correct?
High priority and also a big traffic driver for us, advertising base for us.
Advertising.
So our business model is advertising. So we're the only app store out there that allows you to purchase sponsored placement. So if you're an emerging app developer and want to acquire users, we're probably the best place to get those and purchase users for downloads. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And Kim from Motorola.
Hi, yes, I'm Kim Morgan from Motorola Mobility. I am actually an investment manager on our ventures group, so out looking for great startups that can help Motorola Mobility sell its products to its customers and services. We are a early to mid-stage fund, typically invest in A to C rounds, anywhere from $1 million to $5 million on the initial investment. We have a portfolio of about 25 companies currently, and really looking for that strategic tie.
Excellent. Lucian from Jiff.
Hi, my name is Lucian Masalar. I'm a director of mobile at Jiff. I was the principal architect for eBay Mobile before. I've been in the software industry for over 20 years, spanning from data warehousing, big data, and then in the past 4 years I've been doing mobile exclusively. Just a few words about Jiff. Just like any other Palo Alto startup, we're going to revolutionize one particular aspect of daily life, which is the communication between doctors and patients. And we're going to come up with a great platform and a series of iPad apps that will allow the doctors to communicate a lot better. Things like prepping for surgery, things like explaining various conditions and so on.
Excellent. All right. And just for deeper context, so Jiff's customers on a B2B sense are healthcare providers and doctors. And from a B2C sense, they're just general consumers, family members that are concerned about their health. For Getjar, it's B2B is online advertisers, and B2C is general consumers, free apps. Motorola, obviously I think we all know, but B2B is mobile network operators. Those are their biggest client base. And B2C is consumers. So it's B2B to C for Motorola. I did want to run through just like a very general, what is big data in mobile? Is it metadata? Is it business intelligence? Is it more than that? So since Lucian has a lot of experience with this with eBay, let's just kind of run through what you think big data in mobile is, like a loose definition.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask, different people will have different, visions of what that is. So basically for a company like eBay, the big proposition is, can I actually identify who my users are? What platforms are they using? Where are they? What's their propensity for coming back, and so on, right? So it is pretty much the same thing as you would be interested in for users of a website, but in mobile there's a series of aspects where are very different, right? So I think coming back to what is big data for mobile, it's everything and anything that you can collect from the field. The big challenge that I've seen was usually the tracking of data happens with means that are very different from tracking of data behind the website. And then the data actually ends up in a place where it's kind of disjunct from your typical data warehouse or your Hadoop instance and so on. So there's a need to actually merge the two and to be able to say, okay, here's the data that I collected from all my mobile devices. Here's the data warehouse. How can I actually combine the two and join and create some analytics?
So maybe it could be three-dimensional data because it's geospatial as well. So three-dimensional is maybe a definition. And then I just wanted to say there's a couple authors that wrote a book in 1999. Okay, 99. Mr. Don Peppers and Mrs. Martha Rogers wrote a book called OnetoOne Future. It is now a marketing classic on how more products and fewer customers through one-to-one marketing. So basically, they saw the power of doing internet protocol marketing, so internet marketing. This is 1999, and now we kind of call that metadata marketing. We can leverage what the consumer is doing and where. And we can do, instead of one-to-many like network broadcast television, now we can do one-to-one and figure out how that consumer is actually looking at the ad and where they are. Something that Madison Avenue, all the major advertising firms, have been avoiding since internet protocol. So they still like to do their network broadcast television ad buys, and they don't like to do the interactive advertising because then they're held accountable with reports. So it's something that Silicon Valley has been pushing on Madison Avenue for a long time, and hopefully Madison Avenue will kind of wake up and crack their spirit open to being accountable for one-to-one marketing. So that book was called Again, one-to-one, the one-to-one future by Rogers and Peppers. So let's transition into questions from myself. Big data adoption will be continue to drive and be rapid. Taking all this raw information and usable knowledge throughout sectors of your enterprise, what methodologies or tools does your company utilize in these sectors? So this is pretty kind of a broad question, but answer it how you would like to. Lucian, what do you think?
Tools and methodologies. There's a plethora of companies that are actually specializing in nothing but collecting data from mobile devices. And when it comes to the iOS, Apple ecosystem, there were a couple of years where there was a big controversy. Apple, was actually stating, we don't want your data to leave your company. We don't want your data to be part of a third-party company. So, companies like Flurry and MobClicks and Localytics, they were all, kind of in a shaky position. Nowadays, Apple has relaxed their position, and a lot of people are actually using those companies to track the data. So companies that, the size of eBay, they took Apple very seriously. So they said, you know what, we're going to build our own. So
eBay decided to build their own tools.
That's correct, okay. Yeah, to track the data. And I don't know if you want me to get technical for like 30 seconds, how the actual thing happens. It's actually a very...
Well, the methodology, yeah.
It's a very simple trick. So on the server, you create 1-pixel images, and each image has the name of an event that you want to track on your mobile device. So when you actually invoke the HTTP for that particular 1-pixel image, there's a trace in the access.log in your Apache server that you call that 1-pixel image, and that becomes the event that you're tracking. So by grabbing the access.log, you can actually see exactly the timestamp when that event was sent and the name of the event, and also you can actually send extra parameters with it. So most of the companies that are doing this are using some variation of this way of...
And that created an in-house dashboard for you, so to speak.
Yeah, so you take that data, you insert it into a relational database, and then at eBay we used pWeek, which is an open source suite of products that allow you to actually create a very nice dashboard with the data that is collected.
Okay.
And it's totally different from the web, and there's constant pressure from the product and from management. We would like to do click streaming, just like we do, on the web, right? In the mobile apps realm, it's very different. It's very hard to actually trace somebody from, let's say they're using their app, they see an advertisement, they come to your app,
Understood.
And then the whole thing until they actually buy a product, right? So
Yeah.
It's very hard to close that circle.
So let's consider now you're with a small company, and it's come a little, the industry's matured a little bit more, the software industry. So now maybe with Jiff, are you going to be looking at SME software companies to help you with that you can license and use internally, or are you still going to do a build your own, do you think, inside of Jiff?
I'm planning to do a combination of both.
Okay.
The challenges are different, so we're going to get to the point where we can talk about the COPPA and the
Understood.
HIPAA and all those
we will
nice
get there.
acronyms that put a lot of hurdles in front of you when
Understood. And Kim, you're in the Motorola mobility venture side, so you don't have to get too technical on this or anything, but just give it a whirl. Give it a whirl.
Yeah. So for us, we also do most of our stuff internally, and it's less about how we do it and which tools we use as the information that we gather. Because most people, when they're talking big data, they're talking about, and especially in the mobile realm, how do we advertise to you more? Well, as an manufacturer of the actual devices, what we do is really try and gather the information about how you use your devices. So a lot of our data is collected pre-launch with user trials internally, gathering where did you send that text message from, how much are you using the Bluetooth, what is the battery drain, so that we can improve both the hardware and the software to deliver a better device that is going to give you more of what you're looking for as an end user. And it's much better than surveys and et cetera, because it's true data that we can look at, and it creates a dashboard internally so we can find where some of the issues are before launch.
Okay, so done, key point there is that it was done before time of sale with research groups.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's real user data that delivers specific information. And I use battery use because that's such a pain point with these smartphones. But there are many other things that we're tracking as well.
Great. What about even, when the retailers, whether it's a flagship Sprint store or a third party, Joe's Wireless, do you gather information from them and say, okay, this is how many droids were sold at this on November 20th?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to gather that too.
Okay.
It's not going to be a specific you're not pulling that off of the devices particularly. Right. That's more just sales numbers. And absolutely we're going to use that kind of data
data
as well.
so.
Yeah, that's the big data.
Okay. All right, Mr. Tapia.
All right, so I'll break down mobile, I guess, tools and because of different past lives. So I'll start off with the device itself. So just like Kim was talking about, a lot of the major OSs like iOS, Android, they instrument, and even from the days of Danger, working on a product for instrumentation. So we wanted to instrument, okay, how many times is Bluetooth used on a device? Send that back to the mothership. How many times is the camera used? Send that back to the mothership. And always analyzing from the hardware perspective. OEMs do a lot of investment in the device itself and want to understand, hey, did people really use Bluetooth? Are they really using this feature set? Or is Wi-Fi really being used? Is the camera being used? I added a breathalyzer to my device. Are people really using the breathalyzer? So, which I think LG did a couple of years ago, right? So there's some interesting features that go in devices, and you really want to instrument the hell out of it to understand your return on investment. At the end of the day, it's about creating business and making money. So big data definitely should leverage you should be able to aggregate all this data and then do some smart analysis on it to see whether there's a return on investment or worth moving in the future, right? That's from the device perspective. So let's take it up a level to the software side. Same thing with Android. A lot of feature sets that go into the software. What's being used? How is it being used? And it's a cycle, a feedback cycle. And how does Google know that there's over 900,000 activations a day? How do they know that?
Yeah.
Every device is sending something back to the mothership. They're aggregating the data, trying to understand where, when. As a Danger, you had a heads-up display knowing where all the devices were, right? Ping data, like cell ID and stuff like that. So there's, so from the OS perspective, there's tons of data that's being communicated back to the developer of the operating system just to understand. And that's, we're talking hundreds of millions of devices now. And so that's how you can leverage, and there's also a lot of in-house tools that are being built. So let's abstract off away from the device and from the OS. Let's go down the app side. And I'm an app developer, and a lot of people don't really instrument their device. I mean, their apps themselves. They'll use a third party, so they'll go to Flurry, go to Masalar, or some other large third party to actually instrument the native apps. From the mobile web perspective, most of us use Google Analytics. And if we don't like Google, then we try to find some other third-party alternative. But Google Analytics is pretty much free. So if you're a small app developer, it makes total sense to use Google Analytics. It does have some performance issues once in a while. It's free, right?
Does Apple have an equivalent?
No, not really. No. So there's at least like mobile web perspective, because I can instrument my www.com site, my m. Site as well, with Google Analytics. So there are some good tools out there that are free, not always reliable, and always take it with a grain of salt. What the data is giving you, but it's better than nothing, right? especially if you're a small.
It also appears that
Small
the advertisers, like in Mobi, they have great reports that come out that they kind of share every once in a while.
So that's more
In
like,
Mobi.
I think AdMob used to do the same thing. There's a big trend to just for a lot of open Opera browser does the same
They
thing.
do reports?
They do the top 10 sites that are being hit by country.
Does Mozilla do anything like that?
I haven't seen much.
Okay.
So yeah, about 4 years ago, the era of openness started to be a very common theme in the Valley, and people just publishing data. Essentially, just taking their data mart, crunching all the data, and just providing some very basic reporting, high level reporting to the public. But when it comes also to different tools, you want to understand, have an idea of, from a business perspective, what data do I want to aggregate? What do I want to instrument? Because instrumenting takes some work, takes some time. And I think Lucian can agree. Instrumenting, but then also you want to have a business case at the end of it. It's like, what do I want to learn? How do I instrument it? And when I get the data, how do I analyze it? How do I crunch it? And how can I massage the data so I get something relevant out of it, right?
So two takeaways are no visibility from Apple, 0. And Masalar is a good little third-party provider that's probably not too expensive that can help.
Masalar, Flurry, yeah, you can integrate with them.
Excellent. Let's go next to Motorola and just tell us about your Media Morph latest investment. That's a company that you recently invested in.
Yeah. So Media Morph is, an analogy would be, it is a sales force for the media and MSO world. They're essentially looking at, with all of the devices and watching TV really become, the TV everywhere concept really come into a reality where you're watching your shows on your iPad or your tablet or your phone. What's happening is there's a disconnect between the cable providers and the content providers, where they're having a difficult time tracking where they're allowed to show the actual content and ensuring that people get paid for that content. So there are a lot of very large spreadsheets and a lot of people spending thousands of man hours trying to track all of this, and it's relatively inaccurate. So what MediaMorph is doing is tying those systems together and making sure that the content is delivered appropriately and according to its rules and regulations with whoever the MSO or provider is, and then also ensuring that the MSOs are paying the accurate amount. So
MSOs and MNOs, mobile network operators as well. So
yes, it'll eventually move into that space, but right now the focus is really more on the home side, delivering out to the devices.
So it doesn't surprise me that Hollywood is that archaic, isn't it?
No.
We're from the ringtone business and licensing agreements.
that was a good
Remember that?
It's
like
a challenge.
$2.99.
It's
Like
a
who
challenge.
owns this song? I don't know. Let me go to the file here, and it really was like a paper file. You had to look and
the
who had
catalog
ownership of
for
it.
And that's exactly what
Analog.
it is. You should see the
Wow.
the decision chart on these.
So the undercurrent there with you investing in MediaMorph is that we were talking earlier today that advertising is important for Motorola in general in multi-screen, and you want to do it right the first time.
Yes,
To the consumer, meaning-
absolutely. But really, that isn't so much about the advertising for us as making our largest customers happy, like the Comcast of the world, and helping them ensure that they're not going to end up with license and contract breaches with the media companies.
I'm just projecting a vision
I know.
for you.
Yeah, you're projecting a vision. And we might get there, but it's not there yet.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, Lucian, I think the audience, if you're going to be in the healthcare industry with Jiff, we're curious on how do you work with the compliance issues with HIPAA and what was the other one?
COPPA.
COPPA. Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah.
COBRA, but that's incorrect. COPPA. So
Well, there's
share with
COBRA
us
too, but yeah.
your integration path here.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all about privacy protection when it comes to data that pertains to patients or data that pertains to children. So there's several challenges. So on the mobile app side, if you need to be HIPAA compliant, which is, Child Online Protection and Privacy Act, you cannot trace absolutely anything about that particular user. Where they are, who they are, what their device is, absolutely nothing. So it is a big conflict between, what the product manager wants and what the management wants. They want to know everything about their users, right?
Yes.
And HIPAA says very clearly, you cannot trace anything. So then you have to actually become very creative. You still have to trace the behavior, and then you are going to do something like, for example, I will consider all the users that, register or come into my app for the first time during a day to be, ID 1. And
So
you're
let's
going to
get
trace those people
big
in buckets.
data, more tangible here. So
Mhm.
are you going to build integration tools that connect to HIPAA and connect to
No.
COPA?
No, we just
Cabana?
need to make sure that we're compliant.
Just
So that-
compliant?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's,
I mean,
that's a
that's-
certification that they give you up front, and you just be
Yeah.
compliant.
That's what you're saying, again, you're probably projecting a vision.
It
That's,
could be
that's way out there, way out there. So no,
Okay.
we're not going to do that. But
Bad for a
you know,
moderator to project,
you know,
definitely.
staying compliant is very important. I mean, we are going to create what we call the circle of health. So say, for example, we have an ailing parent, and then, my brothers and sisters are all over the country,
Mhm.
right? By having the parent in the middle of the circle of health, you'll be able to have all the members of the family be able to actually see and hear exactly what the doctor said, right? And, maintaining the data is going to be very important, because you want to make sure absolutely nobody outside this circle can access the data. And so from a HIPAA point of view, which is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, it's more about the big insurance companies. They're very, very careful about who sees the data, how the data gets transmitted. So you're talking about encryption, you're talking about obfuscation of data, you're talking about protocols that transmit data from the mobile device in an encrypted form, and so on.
All right, well, we want an intense firewall from you. I hope you're promoting press releases on that all the time.
I am very big on privacy myself. That's why you will probably not see me on Facebook too much.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is there anyone not on any social network in here? No social network, no Facebook, no LinkedIn,
LinkedIn only.
nothing for me. Nothing?
He's not from Silicon Valley.
It's just because of privacy policies there. Have you ever tried to read one? There's no way a general consumer could figure it out. All right, so I think we've got about 7 to 8 more minutes left, and I'd really like to get the audience to participate. So let's open it up to the audience questions. I think our microphone is ready. So this gentleman in the blue shirt right here with a computer on this table.
Hi, my name's Joe Martinka, and it's interesting that we just segue right into from security to big data. I'm starting to see mobile apps that are updating themselves and are saying, oh, by the way, we've got some new requests for you. We'd like to be able to look at any log on my Android device. Because why? I don't know. Why does AccuTrade want to look at any log? So I stopped using AccuWeather. Because it says I want permission to look at any log on your Android, and
You actually read those? The
Some of us
private
do.
It wasn't the privacy. It was
We know
the
millennials
permission.
do that.
I just did
Permissions
okay,
thing.
okay,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you're
Well,
done with it, right?
This is one thing that this whole big data is subscribing to, and people are going to fall into this thing. If you got any issues with security, where I'm going might have something to do with medical, and AccuWeather wants to know why, because I might catch cold. But so there's going to be some big backlashes coming in when this is on 60 Minutes.
Yeah, the farmers.
Any comments
wanna
about that
know
from the panel?
where everyone's catching a cold because it's rainy and cold degrees.
But this thing just jumped at me just last week.
Good observation.
Something they've added in.
All right, let's next another question from the white shirt gentleman here with the glasses, please.
Do you
And
want
please
us to answer
state
that
your
question,
name
Joe?
and company
Joe,
name.
do
Name
you
and
want us to
company.
answer?
Should we
or
answer
comment?
that? Answer
Oh, I'm
the comment?
sorry.
Quit monologuing over there, Joe.
My co-moderator Mario is keeping me in track. That's great.
No, okay. So I'll give you an example. So from the app's perspective, a lot of developers first start out with a minimal amount of permissions just to get you to install, right? So that's kind of like the carrot. And then once they see you're hooked, they do updates and they broaden out the scope. One big example is SMS, to be able to text you, to get your phone number, et cetera. So they start aggregating some other data. But there's also privileges from the developer perspective. If they want to add an extra feature that's really cool, that does accesses your address book, they have to ask for a whole new set of permissions. But you're like a 1/10 of a percenter that actually reads all those permissions on what that app is going to access. Most people just hit okay, and then
Which is
The
scary.
sheep.
yeah, because it's.
Yeah.
I think we give up a lot of permissions, a lot of privacy for services.
Any other panel member would like to comment on that? No? Lucian? Okay. All right, white shirt gentleman.
Thank you. Chris Rigatuso from Meta Markets, which is an analytics platform in the cloud. And my question is about, to those of you who have both advertising data as well as usage monitoring data, I guess especially to you, Mario, how do you separate or merge those data? Do you have to have some kind of a Chinese wall because of PII, personal identifiable information, that's sort of a barrier in the advertising sense?
Yeah.
And of course you want usage at the handset and the person level, but you don't want necessarily names of those people.
Yeah. I would say Google is the perfect example of doing that, being able to merge usage data and also advertising data and profiling you. One good example is log out of Google and do some searches, log back in and do some searches, and then look at the results. Very, very different, very, very personalized. And even at Getjar, merging that data it's a challenge because you have consumer data and usage data, but also trying to keep it anonymized. So we see you as an ID, a random ID. We don't have your name. We don't have any personal information about you other than it's your device and your behavior. But did I answer your question there?
Yeah. So is there a difference in the usage way and the advertising? You have to do since you sell advertising, you have to do some form of advertising reporting and logging and all that.
Exactly.
Do you use the same anonymization, or do you anonymize them both differently, or do you just separate the data sets entirely?
Both of them are pretty much separate right now because they're different platforms, different tools are being used. So that's a common problem for many platforms or many communities that use advertising plus consumer data. It's actually, you have to really, there's not many off-the-shelf solutions to do that. So you kind of have to roll your own, build it. Yeah.
Stop by our booth at Meta Markets.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sapphire Blue at Meta Markets. Sorry, our Uber blogger has a question here. Wait for the microphone because we're being videotaped. FYI, everyone.
DJ Klein from SVForum. And I have a question. This morning, Apple stock topped out over 600. If big data goes to the biggest market, does Android have any chance in the long term? That's the question. Does Android have a chance? And will the big data go to the biggest market?
So, okay, let me digress a little bit. I think a market where you see only one player is a bad market. So as far as I'm concerned, I would like all of them to succeed. I would also want WebOS to come back and be a player. So I don't think Android is going to suffer it's going to be something like this going forward, right? So one or the other platform and ecosystem is going to take over the press, take over the headlines, take over the stats. But as long as there's a very solid community behind both, and community I mean users, developers, investors, they're going to progress equally. Now, it's going to be the wallets that are going to vote which one is going to prevail in the future, because mobile users are very finicky. They have so much choice, and they say, you know what, I don't like the color of this rim, therefore I'm going to go to the other, right? It's as simple as that, right? An app, I open it and they ask me for too many, terms of usage, and log into this, log into that. You know what? I delete the app, right? So, again, I don't think Android is going to suffer. It's going to be, today's Apple, tomorrow is going to be Google or Android or Motorola or others in the headlines. But as long as they're all surviving, I think it's a healthy market.
Right.
Once it's only one, then we're in trouble.
Well, and that healthy market really drives the innovation, right? Because if you look at the history of, if you want to just take the mobile phones as an example, I'm not going to go into tablets and other devices, but if you look at the history, and that is exactly what I was going to say, is users are very finicky. They will change very quickly. There is a slightly different Apple world where you definitely have the loyal Apple consumers that have an entire ecosystem in their home. But if you look at the history of who has succeeded and who has been leading in the mobile market in the past even 7 or 8 years, it takes one device. We all saw it happen with Motorola with the Razr, and all of a sudden we were on top. And then we didn't have anything to follow it up. Apple launches, and then they're on top. Now you're actually watching more Android smartphone activations now than you have on the Apple side. They have essentially one phone. There are a couple versions of it, but people also like choice. So I think just because you see their stock price go up, a lot of that has to do with the tablet that's launching tomorrow. So I absolutely think that competition is still going to be there, and Android's not going to go away.
Yeah, I think iOS is going to be relevant globally from the global perspective. You know how much an iPhone costs in Brazil? $1,000. You know what the minimum wage in Brazil is? $20 a day. Indonesia, same issue. So from a global perspective, iOS is the third horse in the race. The ComScore just released in January. There are about 101 million smartphone devices in the U.S. About 50% of all the handsets in the U.S. are smartphones. 49% Android, 29% iOS, and then RIM, and then the rest make up the balance. From a global perspective, there are way more Android devices, and just from Getjar's perspective, that's what we see, right? And so I'm making the bet that it's globally it's really going to be Android and Windows Phone. Nokia did 500 million devices last year. Nokia is still cranking them out, and it's still they're going to be pulling back off the Symbian, but that's still Nokia is. It's synonymous how we say Coke. Give me a Coke for Pepsi, Pop, whatever. Around the world, to say, where's your Nokia? That means cell phone. That means your mobile device. So Nokia has a really, really strong branding position in the emerging markets in a global perspective, right? So if we get outside our Silicon Valley bubble and we look globally, Android is for now is going to be dominating until if they just start to lock it down, they'll piss off a bunch of OEMs. They'll be branches. They'll be essentially branching off Android. Chinese guys are doing it right now, ripping out Gmail, ripping out contacts. Because remember, the business of OSs is that why does Google give out for free? Because they own you. Who has an Android device and does not have a Gmail account? Impossible. You have to have a Gmail account in order to activate the device. So there's the powers that be will pretty much push Android to the forefront just for cost perspective. $50 for a smartphone device, you can't compete with that, right?
Okay, Mario.
So, yeah.
Great.
Thank
you
you
really
very
need a
much.
follow-up? Okay, great. So one more question, and then we have our conclusions. Yes, please. Wait for the microphone in the leather jacket, third row. Name and company name.
Hello, my name is George. I have no job, but I have a question. Technology questions. If it is not trade secret, can you tell us what kind of network communication protocols are your company using between the mobile devices from, for example, from one smartphone communicator with another smartphone? What protocol, network protocol are you using? And another side is between your mobile devices and the server. If the same protocol, different protocol, and what's the better protocol on U.S. market that you want to use?
So protocol, there's circuits. In telecom, there's circuit switched. In internet, there's internet protocol. In mobile, there's CDMA, GSM.
I mean, what kind of protocol they are using? And if there is any bad protocol they want to use later, just.
Is there any bias on protocols?
So I mean, there's not too much choice out there. You have MessagePack, you have Protobuf, and then there's a whole bunch of proprietary protocols that you can actually, where you can wrap your data around, right? So is that the type of protocol you're referring to?
Because the most popular protocol is SMS, the short message service, because it's just send data a single piece. Right. Small piece that's very limited. I just wonder if there are other better protocol you are using. It
depends a lot on the type of data, right? So for Jiff, we deal a lot with multimedia data, right? So you're going to have a video with both imaging and sound, and also we overlay a sketchbook on top so you can actually draw as the video goes on, right? So that type of data cannot be easily squeezed into an SMS protocol, right? So it really depends on the type of data you're transmitting. But most companies would prefer a proprietary protocol that they know about and nobody else. And the reasons are obvious. And especially when you're dealing with compliance to HIPAA or COPPA or those kind of acts, the more obfuscated you are when you transmit data back and forth, the better.
Okay. All right. We're going to wrap this up, and we have I'm going to collate some conclusion out of this, past, present, and future. So remember, we're talking about big data, which I think primarily we're talking about software, and that's how it kind of came down to software and protocols at the end. With iOS and Android and Microsoft and WebOS, September 2012, Tizen, that is out of the Linux Foundation with Intel and Samsung. I think we need to look at iOS is obviously a closed architecture. Does that usually work in the long run? No. AOL opened up. Saturn Vehicles opened up. They didn't make it. So let's look at business models as far as closed architecture. They don't make it usually. Open architectures usually make it. But I think that iOS can get a second wind in the marketplace if China Mobile, with 1 billion, they have 755 million customers, that can give iOS, if they get that contract together, that can give iOS a whole new breath for a little bit longer. Otherwise, I just don't think it's in there for 3 to 6 years, going to hang in there. That's my personal comment. If we look at the back end in open, Linux is winning on the back end. NASA runs Linux. The majority of Wall Street runs Linux. IBM, Oracle, HP, all the big companies run Linux on the back end. Why aren't we taking that to the front end? Lucian said, hey, maybe WebOS can make it if it's open architecture. Same thing with Tizen out of the Linux Foundation. So let's go Linux back end to Linux front end. Why not? It depends on Motorola and Google. If they keep locking down Android, then it gives less and less options for us as developers and open architecture, open app stores, i.e. Getjar. Okay? Getjar's phrase is we're an open app store, open. So that's great. Thank you for attending the big data mobile session, and thanks to the panelists, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.